Good evening, I'm Susan Ormiston, and this is The National.
The very first time that they came in to interrogate me and they said, "Who do we contact that will pay for you?"
Joshua Boyle gives new details about his family's long ordeal as hostages and the challenges that now lie ahead. Anger in the streets of Mogadishu after bombs kill hundreds. As allegations mount against Harvey Weinstein, we ask what parents should tell their sons about sex and power. Plus, stunning new underwater vistas as the oceans give up their secrets. A week ago, life looked very different to Joshua Boyle. He, his wife Caitlin Coleman, and their young children were living a long and terrifying nightmare, held captive by Taliban-linked militants, not knowing when or if they'd ever be free. That all changed after a dramatic rescue operation on Wednesday. The family has spent their first weekend home in Canada, but there are many questions. Today, I visited with Joshua Boyle at his parents' home, and here's a little bit of that conversation. His experience is searingly fresh, and Joshua Boyle is trying to harbor his young family at his parents' home while answering some of the difficult questions about their 5 years as captives. He told us he went to Afghanistan as a pilgrim to try and help people. Why did you go there?
Try to fix things.
In the beginning, his kidnappers just wanted money, he said, believing the U.S. government would pay quickly, especially because his American wife, Caitlin, was pregnant.
The very first time that they came in to interrogate me and they said, "Who do we contact that will pay for you? Tell us who you work for. Tell us, are you ICRC? And they will give us money and you go home. Are you Army? Tell us, they'll give us money, you'll go home. Tell us who you work for." And I said, "I have bad news for you. Because the first is that I only work for God, and God does not have a briefcase of cash to give you."
Later, the captors used his family as political leverage, making demands, moving them 23 times between huts, dungeons, and abandoned houses on both sides of the Afghan-Pakistan border. And as he revealed on Friday, exacting their brutal will.
The stupidity and evil of authorizing the murder of my infant daughter, Martyr Boyle, and the stupidity and evil of the subsequent rape of my wife.
Today, Boyle strongly rejected any Taliban claims that his wife naturally miscarried.
Anybody who reads their actual report with a critical eye would agree that it is essentially a confession. They have not tried to make a plausible excuse. They have not tried to put forward a plausible defense.
Over the 5 years, there were several hints of freedom, negotiations, but they always fell through. Until last week, during the handover, the family being transferred in the trunk of their captor's car, it turned violent.
We were listening at all of the shouting and the shooting, trying to recognize voices, who's dead, who's not, who's run away.
Inside the trunk.
We're still inside. And one of our major concerns was that we couldn't actually see our two sons at this point. The chaos had broken loose when they were screaming, "Kill the bandies, kill the prisoners, kill the prisoners." The one who wanted to do that was grabbing at the children to pull them outside and kill them and that. We were frantically trying to figure out, like, can you hear anything from inside the car? Can you hear the boys? Because at this point, like, there have been bullets going through the glass, bullets going through the metal. I have a little bit of shrapnel in my arm and stuff from it. But I didn't care about that. I was just really hoping that my sons were okay. Mm-hmm. And
of course,
the whole thing was over in under 20 minutes. The gun battle was, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, but it seems like an eternity, especially when you don't know where your kids are. And what I had thought would be the happiest day of my life was now looking like it was going to be the worst day of my life. But then, another reversal of fortune, and it turned out that this was actually a good day.
The kids he protected, like his 4-year-old son, are now getting their first taste of a real home, and with them, Boyle finds some comfort. The interview and my conversation was clearly difficult for Joshua Boyle. It was at times intense, and after about an hour, it did end abruptly. One more note related to this story. Today, the Pakistani army says a roadside bomb killed 4 of its soldiers near the Afghan border. The troops were part of a team searching for the militants who held the Boyle family captive. The Pakistani Taliban has claimed responsibility for today's attack. Allegation after allegation, each one more shocking than the next. Still more women are coming forward with stories that they were sexually harassed by or assaulted by Hollywood star Harvey Weinstein. As the CBC's Paul Hunter tells us, now the fallout is also being felt across the ocean.
You know what? We all make mistakes. Second chance, I hope.
Harvey Weinstein's fall from most powerful to most reviled took mere days. The star-making film producer is now said to be in an Arizona rehab clinic, and even that step
Weekend Update
is subject to disdain and ridicule. Trashed last night on Saturday Night Live.
He doesn't need sex rehab. He needs a specialized facility where there are no women, no contact with the outside world, metal bars, and it's a prison.
This as the already long list of women with ugly stories of sexual harassment and assault by Weinstein grows. In Britain this weekend, police are investigating fresh allegations by an unidentified actress describing assaults in 2010, 11, and 15.
J'ai engagé les démarches
in France,
pour en effet retirer la Légion d'honneur.
President Emmanuel Macron said today he wants to rescind Weinstein's Legion of Honor award. Meanwhile, reminders that all the talk about Weinstein, stunning as it is, has been making the rounds in Hollywood for years. The website TMZ unearthed video from 2005 with singer Courtney Love.
I'll get live with this. Harvey Weinstein invites you to a private party in the Four Seasons downtown.
But no one made specific public allegations until now, underlining Weinstein's power within the industry. Hillary Clinton, while promoting her book on last year's presidential campaign, weighed in on Weinstein this weekend.
It was just disgusting, and the stories that have come out are heartbreaking.
Weinstein was a huge fundraiser for the Democratic Party and would have met Clinton, and for that matter, the Obamas, many times.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
With a nod to that video released last year of Donald Trump boasting of his own inappropriate behavior, Clinton underlined such stuff cannot be tolerated anywhere.
Well, after all, we have someone admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office. There has to be a recognition that we must stand against this kind of, action that is so sexist and misogynistic.
In an op-ed in the New York Times this weekend, Toronto actress Sarah Polley suggested such ill behavior in Hollywood is hardly confined to Weinstein. But for now, he's the star of his own repugnant story, with the expectation it'll only get worse. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Colin Kaepernick is filing a grievance against NFL owners for collusion after no team signed him once he became a free agent. Last season, the quarterback began kneeling during the American national anthem to protest racial injustice. And that protest continues. Though today only 7 of his former teammates took a knee during the anthem. This was last week's game before the NFL commissioner sent a letter telling all 32 teams that he wants players to stand. Today, some New Orleans Saints knelt before the anthem. The Cleveland Browns all stood for the song, but some linked their arms. The league and team owners say they will talk about this week, about how to end the controversial protests. To California now, where 1 week in, raging wildfires have killed at least 40 people and hundreds more are missing. But tonight, fire officials there say they've finally turned a corner. The CBC's Kim Brunhuber has the latest.
The sky still seems like it's on fire. The air still seems almost solid with smoke. But for the first time since the fires started a week ago, Northern California is seeing something else, too, a sense of optimism.
They're not going down easy, but we are getting them. And we feel a lot better about that.
It's taken 7 days and 10,000 firefighters, but finally, they say, the fire has been surrounded and it's slowly being smothered.
We have basically line all the way around the fire, and we're continuing to mop up, and we will get further containment as things go on.
The weather has improved. The red flag warning for high wind and low humidity, almost ever present all week, has finally been lifted. Now coroners are going door to door, sifting through ash for the missing. Still, for a region that's been on fire for a week, things are looking up.
We are now switching over towards recovery mode. It's a day I have looked forward to for a week. A week ago, this started as a nightmare, and the day we've dreamed of has arrived.
The dream for many, to be able to go back home and to find it still standing. The cleanup will take weeks, the rebuilding even longer.
My parents lost their home in this fire, so we've been battling that and the emotions of that, along with battling and making sure we keep our 160-year-old business still intact.
Authorities warn against overconfidence. As recently as yesterday, people in Santa Rosa were still evacuating as fresh fires sprung up.
I was looking for my purse, and I don't care, we have to go, we can't stay here, it's coming. My daughter, my teenager is like, all my stuff's on that other car. I don't care, we've got to go, we can't be here.
Some families that fled almost a week ago just returned home last night.
We all got a good night's sleep last night thinking, okay, we're out of the woods.
But they woke up to an emergency alert on their phones. It was happening all over again.
And at that point, a huge sea of police officers from all over the state basically came in with their bullhorns, mandatory evacuation, leave immediately.
But this time, she says, she's not leaving.
Hello, sir. Slaughter County Sheriff's Office.
Authorities warn ignoring evacuations has proven to be a deadly mistake. Winds can change, embers can spread. This, they say, is still far from over. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Today we learned of a first in Canadian aviation. A drone struck a small passenger plane as it came in for a landing.
This should not have happened. That drone should not have been there. And it is important to point out that aircraft are particularly vulnerable when they're on final approach coming in. The pilot is concentrating on landing properly.
The incident happened on Thursday at Quebec City's International Airport, and the plane did land safely. The drone was flying at an estimated 450 meters, while interim regulations stipulate a 90-meter limit. More to the point, drones are banned from flying within 5.5 kilometers of an airport. Canadians can expect a different plan from the finance minister than the one he first pitched on small business owners' taxes. The government got such an earful across the country, Bill Morneau has now made changes to those proposed changes. Evan Dyer has the details.
Much of the criticism Bill Morneau's heard about his proposed changes has come to him through Liberal Party backbenchers, passing on the complaints they've been hearing in their own writings for weeks now. It's clear these proposed changes haven't been received the way the party hoped they would be, and critics have been pointing out that many of the people who'd be affected are far from being wealthy one-percenters. Bill Morneau has acknowledged that there are problems, and before MPs went off on a break last week, he gave a commitment to fix them.
We've heard an awful lot of things from people about how we can refine these measures, how we can make sure that we actually don't have unintended consequences. Now we're going to take those things into account. I mean, the consultation process was real. We were listening to Canadians. There are things, legitimate issues that we need to deal with in order to move forward.
Morneau says the government still plans to reduce the ways in which private corporations can be used to gain tax advantages, but wants to avoid unintended consequences. One example is the effect on female entrepreneurs who use their companies to set money aside for maternity leave. Another, the changes appear to make it more expensive for farmers to transfer a family farm to their own children than it is to sell it to a foreign company. Those are two areas Morneau has specifically promised to fix, and we expect to see those addressed tomorrow in some way. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, is Harvey Weinstein's fall from grace a wake-up call for men who stay silent when they witness harassment?
Disasters are also like an X-ray. You look at your systems and you think, oh, this went wrong.
Plus, an international expert says it's time to rethink how we live with water. For a dangerous place like Somalia, even this is extreme. Its capital, Mogadishu, has been rocked by two powerful bomb explosions. Nearly 300 people are dead and hundreds more have been injured. As Lorenda Redekop explains, it is the single deadliest attack in the country's history.
Almost complete devastation in a neighborhood that had been bustling with people. A bomb blasted one part of Mogadishu. Then, hours later, a second exploded in another part of the capital.
We have seen a lot of bleeding, dead body, injured people, crying people, and so many people were crying over there.
The ambulance service he runs tweeted that in 10 years, it hasn't seen anything like this.
Every hospital said, I can't accommodate anymore. And people was taken to their house and has been treated in their house, which is impossible.
Along with the anguish, protests have filled the streets, many blaming the attacks on the Islamic extremist group Al-Shabaab. It's carried out attacks in the city before. However, so far no one has claimed responsibility for this one. Samia Abdi was born in Somalia and has just returned from Mogadishu. When she visited the neighborhood that's now in ruins, a huge sign hung there, a message of hope in bright lights.
Nabat an-Nalal, which means peace and life. And literally that is the slogan.
From Toronto, Abdi volunteers trying to prevent famine in Somalia and is in contact with community leaders there. One, whom she only met online, died in the bombing.
We do not deserve this kind of attack after attack. Our youth deserve life. Our youth deserve dignity. Our people deserve a life without fear.
The president has declared 3 days of national mourning and also put out a plea for blood donations. Lorinda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S.-backed Syrian fighters have launched their final assault on Raqqa. The city is one of the last ISIS strongholds in the country. The coalition has been on the offensive in Raqqa since June. It now controls 90% of the city that was once the extremist group's self-proclaimed capital. It became the operations center for many ISIS attacks and atrocities. Raqqa once had a population of more than 200,000 before the Syrian civil war. But years of violence and fighting have turned it into a ghost town with almost no building left untouched. Straight ahead, Canadian filmmaker Patricia Rozema joins our panel. She has a story to tell about Harvey Weinstein. As we told you earlier, the list of allegations against Harvey Weinstein is growing, and so too does the list of those denouncing him. Hollywood is just the latest industry to face accusations of rampant sexual harassment, and the question now is, how do we achieve change and move forward? So to answer this, or try to, I'm joined by Soraya McDonald, senior culture writer for ESPN's The Undefeated. Rachel Giza is editor-at-large at Chatelaine, and Patricia Rozema is a Canadian filmmaker. Welcome, all of you. Patricia, you've worked with Harvey Weinstein. You've been in the industry for a long time. What is it about Hollywood that makes this endemic still?
Well, it's a trade in charisma, and it's a trade in sex appeal, and it's a trade in sort of all those intangible elements that, you know, sort of, it's very, very easy to cross the board, and especially in the movie business, it's a one-off business. They're pop-up corporations, so there's no accountability. So you don't have somebody sort of making sure that office practices are proper. So
it's power too.
It's, oh my goodness, it's a huge amount of power, and this man wielded so much power. I think he was actually on the wane. We'll know there's real change when one of the real big players, and there are serious players there now who have just as bad rumors as Harvey did, swirling about them, but nobody's taking them down because there's too much money at stake.
Soraya, this isn't confined only to Hollywood or movies. We know, we've seen it in other industries. How have any of those previous cycles changed anything?
Well, I think we've certainly seen change since 1991 when Anita Hill came forward during Justice Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearings. And even though he was seated on the Supreme Court, that certainly changed our understanding here of the nature of what sexual harassment is and how pervasive it is, and I think has provided the sort of environment and understanding for women to come forward now with these allegations.
Rachel, do you think it's changing?
I mean, I think the fact that that Weinstein is experiencing some consequences for what he's done in terms of being fired from his company. He was just kicked out of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts, which is more of a symbolic thing. But I think the fact that that there is a penalty, there are lots of men who've been accused of these sorts of things in the past who've continued to have flourishing careers. The fact that this seems to be coming at a time, I think, after Trump, after Cosby, after Roger Ailes, after Bill O'Reilly, where I think that there is a sense of women feeling more emboldened and empowered when they speak out. I think they also feel more likely that they will be heard now. I don't know if that changes things, but I think it certainly opens up the conversation at least.
Patricia, what do you think on that? Is this a watershed moment? I mean, nobody admits to doing this until they're outed.
I pray this is there'd be a tsunami of allegations, of not against Harvey. I would love for people to, and men have to stand up, right? Because men become complicit. Silence is complicity if they don't stand up and they know things. It's a very, very difficult thing in our culture. We have rumors, but we don't know where to go with the rumors. If we can't actually make a case against them that will stand up in court, it's quiet. So there has to be some kind of system where people can speak of these rumors, because these young women, almost always young women, who have no connections and no power, are preyed upon. I'm sure there's a lot of agents and casting directors who have something they're accountable as well.
There was also young women involved in aiding and abetting this happening, and I understand it's a power relationship, but is there work that we have to do, Rachel, on giving younger women the voice to say, you can't do that, or I'm not going to be part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I also think it comes to not letting this become normalized. I mean, I think that there is a culture where the hypersexualization of women, where turning a professional meeting into some sort of power play and power dynamic becomes seen as something that's sort of natural and normal in these interactions. And so I think that's why, you know, people get away with being seen as, oh, he's just a dirty old man, that he's just like that. And so I think it's not just sort of empowering the people who are complicit to speak out, but I think more broadly in our culture, to not have this be a normal part of how men behave, or something that's seen as just kind of part of masculinity.
Patricia, break in there.
Yeah, sorry. I hate to see these young assistants getting it in the neck for this.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. And I actually happen to know a little bit about how the Miramax offices ran, and lots of people worked very, very closely with Harvey, and they weren't in the room. They thought maybe there was, you know, consensual stuff going on, but they weren't, like, let's not put it on them. Let's put it on people who were above him who knew about settlements, like board members. Let's put it on
the
people
board
who bankrolled his company and knew about
yeah.
it. Let's put it where the blame where it belongs, and with Harvey, you know.
Put it with the power. Soraya,
and with other men who knew, but I feel like there's just a little bit of a sort of kicking down that can happen in a case like this that I hate to see.
Soraya, are we responsible for enabling this kind of behavior in some way, as we've been talking about?
I think as a culture, certainly we're responsible in that we live we live in a culture that is racist and sexist and misogynist, and that's what we see bubbling up when incidents like this finally make their way to the foreground. I think what we have here is really a textbook case that allows us to understand how institutionalized sexism functions, to the point that, as your guest was saying before, we see, you know, Harvey basically had clauses in his contract that allowed for him to continue working at Miramax and the Weinstein Company, despite the fact that there were these allegations against him, as long as he was raking in the money and the Oscar nominations, and he was paying off these women. You know, there was this idea that this was simply okay, which is just unacceptable.
So on that point, Patricia, I mean, it is a case that's being sort of forensically looked at, and we do learn quite about institutionalizing and turning a blind eye. So in your industry and others, how do we move forward now that we know more? Every day we know a little bit more.
No meetings alone. Nobody in the whole system should allow young women to be, you know, taken to hotel rooms with any man. It just can't. And no one should be leaving a meeting with him. And actually, there is a little bit. Young women have to speak up right away. I think there's a terrible thing that women, when something shameful happens to them, they actually think that they are somehow they're shamed, and they're not. It's just it should rest with the other guy, not with them. So they have to speak out. And social media is great. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. There has to be a lot of noise, and don't worry about being rude. So many young people, women, say it, and often and loud and from the hilltops.
Soraya, what do you think? What are some of the other solutions, even, you know, attacking it from the top where it's happening?
Sure. So I think while it's certainly important for women to speak up, and young women, we have to create a climate in which they feel safe doing that. If your livelihood depends on you being complicit somehow, and you're not necessarily making that much money in the first place, if you're just an assistant working in one of these offices, you know, that's not really fair to them, especially since, you know, Harvey Weinstein was one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. And if he said, you're never going to work in this town again, you know, he could actually back that up. One of the things that I would like to see, I think, is I wish an institution like the Motion Picture Academy would actually hold studios to some sort of standards and say, look, you know, at least 50% of your board needs to be made up of women. You can't really have this sort of just institutionalized male power within Hollywood and expect this problem to just go away.
Rachel, how would you create a climate, or how would you suggest that we create a climate where women can say, and feel safe and group people around them to give them courage?
I think it starts by telling men and boys this behavior is unacceptable and saying that as well, because I think that, again, this has become kind of a normal part of our culture, and it shouldn't be normal. I think that we need to start educating boys and young men about consent early on. We need to have more education in workplaces, at schools, as part of industries, so that this behavior is not reliant on women having to speak out all the time, but men actually changing their behavior, men actually behaving appropriately.
Patricia?
And it's extremely important. Soraya is saying that women are in these sort of leadership positions and are designing the, this sounds like self-interest, but I really do think, men are creating the images of women, and they're creating all the female characters that everyone is just kind of inhaling innocently and accepting that this is what women are like. But women need to be behind the camera in order to present sort of more powerful figures of women, flawed everything, but there have to be more women in positions of power. 4% of the films in Hollywood were directed by women. 4%. What's that about? Men aren't better storytellers. What's that about?
We're wrapping up here, but Patricia, I just wanted to ask you, because you are part of this community, has the Weinstein story changed Hollywood?
I know a lot of women and actors, female actors, coming to me and saying, I know 100 stories like this. I just thought that was the business. It's ridiculous what people will accept. I do feel, and people writing op-eds, and I've been helping some people with them, and there's a wish to change things, and a hope that this might be a transitional moment. I don't know. It's going to be glacial, but it's let's.
I was with you there, being hopeful for a moment.
Okay,
but glacial is too long.
I'll leave on a hopeful note. Let's just do that.
All right, all right, ladies. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Up next, as the climate changes, what do we do with all that water?
Opportunity to waterproof our cities.
The Dutch are drawing on centuries of experience to teach the world to live with water rather than working against it. Plus, David Attenborough has explored our planet for decades.
Is the world better off or worse off now?
The world-famous naturalist takes stock of where we stand.
Amazing Alouette has outperformed anything that's been shot into space since the Russians started it with Sputnik 1. The mere fact that it's still faithfully sending back messages from the top side of the ionosphere is enough to make it remarkable. When it was launched in September of 1962, its designers figured that with luck it would operate for a year. As of right now, it's been in orbit for 5 years and 7 months, and 3 of the 6 original batteries are still working.
It was a picture that Canadian engineers had waited 6 years to see, and for which Canadian taxpayers paid $100 million. A giant space robot with Canada's name on it and the Earth above. The remote manipulator system performing perfectly.
Okay, and be advised that we're looking at a great picture.
Good evening. It was a spectacular liftoff and a history-making day for Canada. The shuttle Challenger blasted off the pad at Cape Canaveral at dawn. On board, astronaut Marc Garneau, the very first Canadian in space.
This trip into space for me has turned out to be more than ever I could have hoped for. It's a great honor for me to represent Canada in space.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery and the first International Microgravity Laboratory.
Good evening. There's a Canadian in the heavens tonight, Roberta Bonder, going around in circles and entirely happy about it. Canada's second astronaut in space. She's orbiting planet Earth about 300 kilometers straight up. She left from this space center this morning, 59 minutes later than scheduled, but after a lifetime of anticipation, those minutes probably won't mean very much in the long run.
Incredible view.
A crucial spacewalk took place in the skies above us early today, and Canadian astronaut Julie Payette was in charge. Payette coordinated the mission from onboard the Space Shuttle Discovery.
History was made high in the sky today. For the very first time, a Canadian walked in space. Early this morning, astronaut Chris Hadfield began installing Canadarm2, and with it, launched a new era for the International Space Station.
With great humility and pleasure, I accept command of the International Space Station.
Get back soon.
The National. The National.
Tonight.
From Houston to Miami, even as far north as Canada, an important question being asked this year: could all this flooding have been prevented? Well, here's a man with a plan. Henk Ovink is a Dutch water expert whose government has sent around the world to share his expertise, and that's because the Netherlands, a country largely under sea level, has learned not to fight water, but to live with it. Of course, it's also had a head start on solving this problem of about 1,000 years. You'll meet Ovink in a moment, but first, here's what you need to know. There's no question extreme weather is a reality. Last summer, we watched Hurricane Harvey roar into Texas, flooding the city of Houston with record-breaking levels of water.
And when I opened it, more water just rushed in.
A short time later, it was Irma's turn. The powerful storm tore through the Caribbean and ripped through Florida, leaving streets flooded, neighborhoods submerged. We were caught up in the middle of it.
165 kilometers an hour just pounding this part of the Gulf Coast.
Puerto Rico was hammered too. Hurricane Maria leaving parts of the island deep underwater.
The Puerto Rico and the San Juan that we knew yesterday is no longer there.
But flooding plagued Canada too this year. The St. Lawrence River has been on flood watch, and much of the Toronto Islands was closed off this summer because of water where it wasn't supposed to be. All this water begs the question, are there ways to turn menacing water levels into less of a threat?
1, 2, 3.
How should we prepare ourselves for extreme water? Well, who better to ask than the Dutch?
So the Don and the Humber are the biggest, but then there's 7 in between.
Henk Ovink is a water expert, a special envoy for international water affairs for the Netherlands. He says we need to reimagine how our cities are built and rethink our relationship to water. I met up with Henk Ovink earlier in Toronto. Henk, what can the Netherlands teach us about water?
What not, I would almost say, but I want to be a little more modest. The Netherlands is a country that was, built on water. We were 2,000 years ago, a place where there was only water. Wetlands, rivers, a real delta, as you can see now in Bangladesh, a wet place. But we turned that water into an asset, because water also in those times was a way to move goods and people. And we learned how to organize ourselves with the risk that came with water.
A lot of people think of the Netherlands and think of the boy with the finger in the dike.
Right.
That's a barrier.
That's a barrier, yeah, but Already in the 1100s, we said, next to building stuff, we need to organize ourselves around this. If we don't collaborate, you know, if I build a dike around my house, the water goes to my neighbor, and then I have a conflict. So we organized ourselves on a regional scale in water authorities.
Okay, so you were talking about the Netherlands arranging itself around water. So many communities this summer in particular were so afraid of water. Water drowned us all in North America this summer.
Yes.
So what are we doing wrong?
Well, we see water as an enemy or not as a friend. So we don't take water into account when we plan our cities. People say Toronto is a city in a park, but there's hardly any park in the city. And that's what you saw in Houston and in other places, but also in Europe 1.5 years ago, when rain events flooded France, Germany and Austria. So when it rains, our cities can't deal with the water because we didn't take care of water storage, green capacity, green roofing to be able to deal with those extremes.
So do we have to build more to keep the water away from urban centers?
No, we have to change the way we build our cities and redevelop the existing. So with urban growth happening over the next decades, there's a real opportunity to waterproof our cities, to make them future-proof for that matter, and to be able to deal with those extremes, more droughts and more rain. But the existing cities, we also have to open up, make sure that they can hold the water longer, that they can capture it when it rains and then let go.
Waterproof your city, that's
Yes.
a very fascinating idea. So how do we do that?
Well, in different ways. Sometimes you have to move people out of harm's way. More parks, increasing open water bodies. In the Netherlands, we had a program. It was called Room for the River. We almost flooded in 1995 and evacuated 250,000 people and then thought, the rivers, we forgot about them. So we gave them more room and the capacity to flow.
How did you give them more room?
By moving people out of harm's way, taking agricultural land and making it temporarily available when there is a flood. We built an enormous park just north of Rotterdam. That's now a rowing facility for rowing in the World Championship. But it can hold the water with a rain event or with floods coming in from the rivers. So multi-usage in your city, where a parking garage can also be a storage for water in a rain event, where you open up your canals so the sidewalks can flood, but not do damage to the rest of the city. Rethinking how you design your city on every scale and in every aspect is critically important.
So making friends with water.
You have to love water and have to understand it. Water is complex.
How worried should we be about extreme events like we've seen in the last summer all over, here in Toronto with record levels of water in the Lake Ontario, in the St. Lawrence Seaway? Our islands in Toronto were flooded. Alberta had flooding years ago. How concerned should we be?
Very concerned and very worried, but not without hope. There's research by the World Bank, by the OECD, by research institutes from all over the world that really says our cities will flood. It will cost trillions and trillions of dollars. We will lose people's lives. 2 billion people are at risk until 2050 when it comes to too much water alone. So if we don't change, we will lose all that. But if we do change, if we take on this opportunity, build better cities, build better water systems, collaborate, not only within a city, but within a region and across a border, then we can build a better future. So there is hope.
What you're talking about is a rethink, though, because most of us live in urban spaces that have infrastructure designed in the 1950s and 60s, which is wearing down already. But when you have a flood event, we hear more talk about more infrastructure, more cement, more walls, more retention. Are we going the wrong way?
If that is the direction, you're going the wrong way. More concrete will not solve the water problem. Understanding water will. You have to go back to what the water wants. Look at the river. A normal river meanders. And then when there's too much water, it grows. That capacity you will never hold with a wall. I was in Peru advising the government on their response after the major floods in March. And you saw what the river did. And he said, let's build more walls. And I said, let's take more walls away. Give the river more room, ensure that you're not building in harm's way, and then you're able to adapt, be flexible, and deal with these extremes.
You watched Houston be submerged this summer. You have so much knowledge. What were you thinking? What was Houston's problem?
Harvey was a major rain event. You know, in current days, you can't prevent the event from happening, but you can prevent the enormous impact. That doesn't mean that houses or buildings won't get flooded, but you can take into account what the damage is and how people will survive. Disasters are also like an X-ray, a magnifying glass. You look at your systems and you think, oh, this went wrong. Harvey showcased the vulnerabilities of Houston. It's concrete, its surfaces are not permeable. They don't take water into account. There's not enough green. So replanning your city is possible. And you can start not only in your city, but also in the rivers. There's not enough storage capacity. The rivers do not have enough flow capacity. And there's a lot we can do actually to increase that.
Hank, you obviously are passionate about water and you love water. But do you think the rest of us are ready for the message of sustainability and making friends with water, allowing room for water?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. After floods happening, you see people step up and say, this is our responsibility. We can do this. We can build a better world. And I think the sustainability effort is something that's ingrained in the culture of everyone. We want to take care for our children and grandchildren, for our neighbors and families and friends. And that's in a way sustainability. Now we have to up our game a little and say, with that ambition, we will not reach the goals we need. But by embracing the capacity we have in our hands, we can really transform and change the world.
Well, lots to think about, especially after this season of flooding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. It was a pleasure.
Just ahead, more water. A stunning look at the world's oceans.
This is Blue Planet 2.
David Attenborough's new documentary combines visual splendor with an urgent call to action.
For heaven's sake, we ought to be able to work out how to get rid of plastic.
That's coming right up on The National.
It was as if all of London was in love. 600,000 people filling the streets, come to share a special day. As they cheered every carriage, and as they listened quietly to the ceremony on the speakers,
I pronounce that they be man and wife together.
they were, quite simply, rejoicing.
Because I love these things. I love royal weddings and royal anything.
Yes, it's Britain, isn't it? It's Britain. We're here because we're English, we're British. This is a great day for us.
The crowd in front of me today has been absolutely marvellous. They've enjoyed themselves watching the procession, and they seem to have enjoyed it thoroughly.
It was a time to forget all the troubles, and anyone who tried to bring them up didn't have a chance.
The country.
It's good for the country, yeah,
it's
but...
good for ordinary people like me who go to work every day.
Yeah,
and
but what about
thousands
people
and
that
millions of
haven't
other
got jobs?
people like us, all right?
What about
It's
people
good
that haven't
for
got
us.
jobs?
I enjoy it.
What about
That's all
fellas
there is
like
to
me
it.
as well? What about fellas like me?
It's just for the ordinary working people who go to work every day who've got a job. All right, we're lucky we've got a job.
Yeah, but
this
what about
is
the people that
marvellous.
haven't
This
got
is
a job?
England.
Not only the British thought it was marvelous, the Trudeau children watched from Canada House with their mother.
Well, I thought it was like a fairy tale. And like the trumpets and the band and the Prince Charles was the prince and Lady Diana was the princess and was very happy.
What did you think of Lady Diana?
I think she was very beautiful, and I'm glad that Prince Charles has picked her. He has made a very good choice.
Misha, what did you think of the whole thing?
I think the band was nice. I'm a musician myself, so I would think it's nice all the time. Lady Diana was nice, Charles was nice, the church was nice, the Queen was nice.
Not just the children, but all the world seemed captivated by the beautiful princess in her magnificent dress.
She looked beautiful. She had lovely frills around here, and she looked like a lemon colour, didn't it?
Lemony cream, it wasn't white.
Lovely.
Even as they saw it, this London fashion house was copying it, frantically working from a sketch made the moment the bride appeared on television.
Ours is white, hers was ivory, more to cream. Secondly, really the important thing is we are not using pure silk, we're using artificial silk, and therefore it's a lot cheaper than Lady Diana's or Princess of Wales dress would be if one could buy it, which of course you can't.
Within hours, 3 copies of the dress will be in London stores. Within days, thousands. The wedding has obviously been a tremendous boost for the British fashion industry and for the British economy, and also, perhaps above all, even if only fleetingly, for a faltering British spirit. Eve Savory, CBC News, London.
It's our life, it's our journey.
Fear not, I have the solution. 20 minutes, easy peasy.
The food scene here is insane.
Set yourself up to be noticed. It's our life.
Sir David Attenborough is in love. For 7 decades, he's turned his passion for the natural world into bringing wildlife to the masses. Without his ambition, millions would never have seen the flesh-belly frog, the goblin spider, or the extraordinary leaps of the dusky dolphin. Well, get ready. He's rekindled the courtship, hosting the much-anticipated BBC documentary Blue Planet 2. The CBC's Thomas Daigle got a rare sit-down chat with Attenborough.
The ocean, the largest habitat on Earth.
It's the voice that's taught generations about nature and all its creatures.
But now we know so much more.
The gravitas of David Attenborough back again in a series that dives deeper and gets up closer to life underwater.
This is Blue Planet 2.
At the premiere, he's sharp as ever, now 91 years old and tackling the problems of a modern world. He spoke to us beside Blue Planet 2's executive producer.
Sir David, when you think back to the start of your career, and you think back to the challenges that are illustrated in this series, is the world better off or worse off now?
There are 3 times more human beings on this earth than when I made my first television program. There's much less space for wildlife. So if you're a chimpanzee, or if you're an orangutan, or indeed if you're a coral reef, you'd say the world is not as good as it was.
In a career spanning 7 decades, Attenborough's always been keen to share what he sees through those binoculars.
They were big creatures, even larger than I'd imagined, at least.
Introducing the world to rare critters in far-flung spots.
And this is one of the last places where this rarest of the Mediterranean mammals can find safety.
Once voted Britain's most trustworthy figure, he's now using his clout and his latest series to warn like never before about human threats to nature, coral bleaching, warming seas, and ocean plastics.
It's not rocket science. And if we can solve rocket science, for heaven's sake, we ought to be able to work out how to get rid of plastic.
But it's not just plastic. He says the climate change doubting Donald Trump poses a real risk too. As a solution, Attenborough even joked last year, we could shoot him.
If the president sticks to his present views, I suspect that that is not good news for the natural world.
Blue Planet 2 could be his most ambitious project yet, filmed over 6,000 hours underwater in 39 countries. Canadians will have to wait till early 2018 to dive in, and only if viewers subscribe to the specialty channel BBC Earth. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.
Wow. We'll be right back with another look at our top story, and that's Joshua Boyle's first-person account of his family's capture and rescue.
The people of Thomasville, Georgia have stopped counting how often it comes. They just know it does. It's that train, the one carrying the most galling of cargoes. Canadian softwood lumber, Newfoundland, Quebec, British Columbia's best. Each plank more salt in the very deep wound of Bob Balfour.
Well, it doesn't feel very good to see the tracks filled with Canadian lumber. We know it's overwhelming the country.
In that rail yard shadow, 3 generations of Bob Balfours have cut southern pine here. But the mill's been silent for months. No match, the argument goes, for Canada.
We know it's taking our markets away from us. They can undersell southern yellow pine all over the United States. There's no way that we can compete with Canada.
Here, in the land of the southern pine, that's a little hard to take.
Georgia is the largest lumber products manufacturer in the entire United States, but that doesn't mean its own southern pine rules this place. Canadian softwood, this lumber right here, now takes 1/3 of the market.
Ideal for the construction industry, Canadian softwood is lighter, easier to pound nails into, cheaper, and that's always frustrated the U.S. mill owners. Decades of trade battles were supposed to end with a deal negotiated in 1996 that restricts the export of Canadian softwood lumber. U.S. mill owners say it didn't protect them enough. Point out that 3 major Georgia mills have closed in the last year. Many more, like Metcalf Lumber, are on the brink. Limping along, the owner says, in hope that when the current agreement ends on March 31st, something stricter will replace it. Canadians want just the opposite, complete free trade in softwood. That makes P.W. Bryant shudder.
I think the situation only worsens. Probably we'll have to shut down.
Canadian mills are suffering too, but there's a perception here that Canada has an unbeatable edge. Partly because of the low Canadian dollar, partly because many Canadian mills are more modern, more efficient. But the most unfair advantage, say the Americans, is how little Canadians pay for timber. Where U.S. mills must bid for wood on the open market, Canadians buy it from government-owned land at much cheaper prices. An illegal subsidy, the Americans scream. Don't bother trying to remind anyone here that that's never been proven.
I don't think they're as justified as our plight. I'm telling you, the lumber industry in the United States is in dire straits. I mean, this is the worst. I've been in it 40 years, I've never seen it like this.
Complex trade issues that deep in the southern woods boil down to one clear reality.
It's really hurt our business. You know, I don't have any problem with them shipping it in here, but they should tax it accordingly.
An entire industry on the edge, convinced Canada is driving it into oblivion. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Thomasville, Georgia.
It's been just 4 days since Joshua Boyle, his wife Caitlin Coleman, and their 3 children were rescued in Pakistan. The couple was kidnapped by extremists 5 years ago. Today, Boyle described part of that rescue when he and his wife were in the trunk of a car.
And one of our...
Joshua, I need to ask you about some more current things that have come up since you've come out.
The family's now staying with Boyle's parents in Ontario. And that is the National for this Sunday night. For news at any hour, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Susan Ormiston. Thank you for watching.